have a guest speaker in the person of Kimberly Brazwell. Wait a minute, Kim. She is the coordinator of diversity and study for our programs at Columbus State College in Columbus, Ohio. And she's actually an alum of the Ohio State University. So please help me to welcome her here to our campus. Thank you. So tonight, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to look at this whole thing we call class and classism and social class. And we're going to try to unpack it, define it, and then we're going to try to have a discussion about how class plays out in our lives, not only as individuals in this campus community, but also in our larger community and society. So at this time, I will turn things over to the hands of Kimberly Brazwell.
Okay. Isn't that pretty? It's like a wordle, isn't it? I know. I just thought for a second we could just stare at it together. Okay, we're done. All right, so I have this here just so you are, some people like to see the agenda. This is for people who like to see the agenda. This is the agenda. Here's what we're going to do. Hopefully, though, it won't feel that chopped up, but that's what we're going to do. So what I wanted to start out with was, and this is why we started out with TV shows. I don't even feel like I need this microphone because I can be pretty obnoxiously loud. So I may end up using it, kind of doing a Oprah talk show kind of thing and giving it to you. So at some point, I'm probably going to put this down, and you let me know if you can hear me once I put it down, okay? Can you hear me if I just talk like this?
Oh,
yeah. I'll use this for you later if you like. We'll do one of these. Because I'll be popping up and down. Okay. So, is anyone wondering what this has to do with what we're talking about?
yes.
Yes? So here's what I'm pitching. I'm guessing that we don't normally, consciously, mindfully think about classism, right? First of all, who wants to mindfully think about that? Because it makes people uncomfortable, right? Because we are probably associating a value with class. But my argument that I'm pitching to you is that you probably, on some subconscious level, picked it up through the media. When you're watching TV, you probably picked something up in some TV show somewhere. And I think you're partially proving my point because you were even able to stick these in here, right? So first thing I want to do is I'll show you this clip. If I can, yay, hopefully it'll pop up. It is silent, so there's nothing. You're just this is a real thing that's coming soon called the classproject.com, but it blends this discussion. And now you have me paranoid. I'm thinking, was there sound? Because there's something else that I'm going to show you later, and there's sound. So hopefully nothing's wrong with the sound. We'll find out later. Okay. So when we got to this, let's now open this up and have this discussion. Let's start the discussion. From the first time you saw this list, now also the funny thing that I got from the discussion is some people were like, what is this TV show? Right? Who got some TV shows and people were like, I don't even know what that is. Because I think it would be hilarious for some of us who are older and like, you don't know what that is. What were some of the ones you're like, I don't even know what that is?
21 Jump Street.
That's some good stuff right there. I mean, we're talking the age of Stonewatch Machine. Magic is happening around 21 Jump Street. Magic. What else? Hee-haw. Let me tell you what. Hee-haw introduced country to a lot of people who had no idea what that was. I know I lived in a project community, very urban, and every now and then I'd be like, check out Hee-haw. Just getting it done. And go, making it happen. That's a good time right there. What else? Can't do this on TV. You can't do that on television? Okay, we'll let that slide. But you can't do that on television. Was the beginning of Nickelodeon. So you know now how they have iCarly and all kinds of things like that. Nickelodeon was like the Saturday Night Live for Queens. It was a skit comedy show. My heart is breaking here. I'm like, how can you not know these things, these important things? Math is important, but you gotta know it. You can't do that on television. You just gotta know that. What else? They were like, what is that?
Fame.
Fame. Still my BT mark. You're like, nothing. I got nothing. Fame was like, Phil Jackson. Fame. Nothing. Your eyes perked up for a second, like, wait a minute. I remember this. No? Nothing? Okay. Yeah. Fame was like the performing arts school, and now people are like kind of aging and they choreograph because they can't really do the dance anymore as well, but good stuff. You need to Google that as you get home. Like straight away. I know you got homework. Google Fame. Then do your homework. Trust me. Your instructors will be fine. What else? This is important. This is some groundwork for this. Yes.
I mean, have you heard of it much? I have no idea what it is. The Eddie show.
The Ed Sullivan Show.
I don't know.
Who can help here?
Well, I know that.
Ed Sullivan. This is magic.
Ed Sullivan used to have entertainment groups come on there. Ed Sullivan introduced the Beatles to America.
We're talking like Jackson 5, Michael Jackson having an afro. Like before. Check that out. That's important. Yeah. This is like wow. Anything else? This is highlights on. What is going on here? What is going on here? You know what's funny? As we're listening to some shows, and people are like, I don't know what this is. There are some people in the audience who are like they don't want to be friends with other people. We're like, no, we can continue to talk.
I didn't know John Carson.
Okay. Before Jay and Young, there was Johnny Carson. Now, he is a little bit older. He's like 112. But no, Johnny Carson, he was like the man for late night, the talk shows and all that. Before. Right. Okay. I just wanted to figure out what was going on with us and figuring out what's going on in the room. Are there any people who are a little more seasoned, who might have gotten a TV show that's like, what is this? And it's something that people are watching right now and you're like, I don't really watch that because I'm reading.
I've heard of the Daily Show, but I never seen it and didn't know what it was.
Yes, the magic of the Daily Show.
I know the zero.
You get the news, but in a more teeth kind of way. Yeah, old school.
Why didn't you have our name on there?
You know what? I have 2 different sources of TV shows to try to, and I had to narrow it down to try to figure out, yeah. It was challenging. And then, of course, I'm like, they didn't have some of my shows on there. But, all right, so now, the next question is, for those of you who would like to share, if you would feel comfortable, share with us what you got and where you put it and why. Yes.
I got SpongeBob and I put it in 8 because obviously it's more for kids and more class. It's kind of for everyone, but
SpongeBob, yeah. Yeah. What else? Yes.
I got Happy Days right in the middle of White Bills.
Right, because kind of knowing that Happy Days wasn't thinking, I need to find out where my gay Latinos are, because I'm sure they want to watch Happy Days, right? That's not what they were thinking about. Okay. They're not going to think that. I guarantee you. What else? Yes.
I guess I had a question because I had Knight Rider, which probably not people don't remember, but I was thinking of this being more of a working class and a white, maybe 13-year-old boy type show. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. I did see working class on the show, so I put it in the middle class. So are you putting working class in middle class?
We're going to get to that. We're going to tease that out a little bit. But yes, it could work there. Anyone like guys like Knight Rider? Don't know what you're talking about. Knight Rider. Awesome. So you know the Hawk. Who knows the Hawk? David Hasselhoff. Tight leather pants. Everybody. College leather. He had this show Knight Rider in his black car that everyone thought was real sweet, named Kid. Then the light went. I'm not even gonna check it out. Support. What else? Who else? Now, see, everyone can share because you all did this. Unless you cheat. Yes, way back.
I had Falcon Crest.
Falcon Crest, yes.
And I put it in middle class as far as it might be the middle class watching Wishing Neighbor and the upper class, which Falcon Crest was, I think, very as the upper class.
Yes. And also, upper class, and where'd you put it here? Regarding which diversity category?
I put it in middle class, but it would, the
But-
show itself would be.
But across here is like race, gender, age, sexual orientation, ability, religion.
I didn't do that
That's okay. But for whoever watched Falcon Crest, where would you put Falcon Crest? I'd agree with that. I don't even think, were there ever any brown people on Falcon Crest? No, I don't think so. Wow. Like, man, there were no brown people on Falcon Crest. Like, in the whole city of Dallas, nobody was brown. That's incredible. They went through all those seasons and never one minority ever. So wait a minute, I'm mixing shows. Dallas and Falcon Crest, 2 different shows. Pretty much the same thing. Same thing. Yeah. What else?
Graduate Sanford son.
Yeah, where'd you put it?
New York.
Yep. And again, here's another example of, for some people, the first time they saw 4 black people was Sanford and Son on TV. So then we can tease this out and have a discussion more about this, but then what happens if you've never met black people before? And then you meet the first black person you truly met was Sanford and Son. Right? What else?
I had the Wonder Years.
think so. I saw it had a lot of the meetings and stuff. It had a lot of things, you know, women getting out of the kitchen, a lot of washing and stuff, and a lot of teen issues, and a lot of that had to do with, you know, gender roles and things like that.
Right, and that perspective, that pubescent boy. Yeah. Yes.
I have a different role. Now, I put it in the middle class, and I'm their raised, but really, I think the poor class.
Yes. Yes. And also, we can tease that out a little bit too, because there are some shows that were very, very polarizing about who watched them and how they show certain groups. For example, how many people know about the Cosby Show? The Cosby Show, right? So most of you know about the Cosby Show. How do you think people reacted to the Cosby Show? Who did it show, first of all? Okay, that might not be the right approach. Someone can volunteer, because it's over here, this was over. If I get a volunteer, who did the Cosby Show depict? What from here though? Rich, black. Now, let's talk a little bit about how that was received. How do you think white America received seeing a rich black family on TV?
What year did it start?
80s.
80s.
Well, wasn't that number one in the ratings? Wasn't that up in the ratings like number one or something like that at one time?
It did have high ratings, yes. So a lot of people were watching the Cosby Show, but I think you'd be intrigued by how some groups thought about it. Some people had no clue, right? There was no possibility. Yes.
They were rich based on the occupations that they had. They had a nice house, but the house wasn't like a Dallas mansion.
Right.
So I think they came across as more maybe upper middle class possibly, or middle class. They dealt with middle class issues. So while the parents were highly educated and had professional jobs, I don't think it came across as quite the highfalutin middle or upper class that you might think maybe.
Right, so it's going to be a little bit different.
No, it's a comedy show, so I received it well.
Right, and it's going to be a little bit different than your Falcon Press, right? A little bit. The casting was a little bit different. Cosby Show versus Falcon Press. Now, what I will share with you before we go to the next thing is, there were a lot of African American families who were frustrated by the Cosby Show. Why do you think that would be? Like, this is just really kind of pissing them off a little bit. Why do you think?
They probably feel like they were dealing with realistic issues in the African American community.
Yeah, well, that's not what my life looks like. What else?
Yeah, I think they probably thought this isn't the typical black family, you know, African family. So they couldn't identify with it. And
Right.
they might have felt the show masked issues that they face in their dating.
And those were, yes, that and a lot of other things too. And then as I'm going up here to click on the next thing, here's my challenge for you, because I've found this incredible. How many shows can you name off the top of your head that featured Latino families? Can you think of any outside of George Lopez? Ugly Betty. We got two. Chico and the Man.
What was the brother?
Where, and I'm talking about not where there's a Latino person cast. The whole show is about or featuring or showcasing Latino culture. We got three right now. Mine is the whole show about the Latino culture. Right. I'm talking the featured family. It's featuring Latinos.
Is it in America or is it on the stage?
That's right. 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 You're like, oh, wait a minute, I gotta change that. Right. So we got three.
There's one now, and this channel,
right? And it's a biracial Latino family. We got 4. And I'm gonna be nice and count 4s with an asterisk, you know, but I come from a biracial family, so that counts.
There was one season, I can't remember the title of it, but it had Jimmy Smith and she was a girl. It was, they were the rich family that was inherits. Oh, that's awesome.
I got one.
Okay.
Why you didn't see it on Comedy Central?
That's right. Comedy Central, so you have to have cable to see that. So we kind of got 5, right? Kind of. So my question for you is, in just real quick brainstorming, if you're not bumping into the Latino community on a daily basis, and there are 5 total shows in the history of the wealth of the knowledge of the room that we could think of, how on earth would you know anything about Latino people? How would you?
National
It's a rhetorical question, something to think about. Okay, so now here comes someone asked, what about the classes and this kind of thing? So social class is really talking about 3 things, right? Wealth, power, and prestige. And we probably see this play out sometimes. I usually got confused about what's the difference between money and wealth, right? Money is money, but wealth is the stuff. So if you've ever been, oh, this is also the difference, as you see this, between rich and wealthy, right? There's a difference. Rich is the money. But wealth starts talking about the objects. So as an example, my husband works at a large organization, and the top levels has very extremely wealthy people in power. He had to go to an executive's house to do some work, some technology work. And as he was passing through a hallway, he saw these beautiful paintings. And then upon closer look, he realized they were originals. Rembrandt's, Picasso's, that kind of thing. That requires incredible, incredible wealth. That if you've not been, and I've not even seen this kind of wealth, you can't actually picture it unless you see it. This is people who have undercover agents guarding their children because they would be worth ransom. That's the extreme wealth. And then we have people who have like a sweet car. That's different. That's a little bit different. Then we have people who are like, this is my ride, and listen, it started up and I got here, so rock on. That's a little bit different. And then we have what I was like in college, where I'm like, shoes. That's it. That's how I got it. Shoes, right? Different. And then prestige. This is the respect, the importance, the regard. You know, there's that person who's like, oh my goodness, whose house did you go to? Do you know who that is? That. Some of us don't have that yet. Not that we're not important. We just aren't bringing a lot of prestige to the table, right? And of course, we know about power. Who's in control? Who has the power to define, to change laws, this whole kind of thing? Yes?
Don't they kind of go hand in hand a little bit? Because I mean, if you think about somebody who's very high on the charts, like, for instance, B.B. King. Like, I was having a conversation with him earlier. He's, you know, wealthy. I'm sure he has objects that none of us could ever think about having. But he's also got high prestige. I mean, he's been the king of blues for years and
Right.
years.
So here's my question for you. Does he have power?
I'm sure he does. If you walk into a room, I would like to whatever he's saying.
Does he have power everywhere?
I'm sure some people would eat right.
Right. And that's the thing too to think about is there are certain worlds where some people have power. Some people have some power in some worlds. And some people have power in all worlds. Right? So there's a continuum, right? Who has the most? Oh yeah, and this isn't like me schooling you, like, we can have a discussion. I'm okay with that. So now, your question when you were saying, working class, middle class, I wasn't sure about this. I was digging into this because, you know, we hear generally about 3, but they argue that there's 7. Right? And at first I'm like, how could that be? But look at the top one, where we're really considering upper class. Talk to me about what you think about that. And this is actually how I saw it described. Old money, new money. Talk to me about what you think that is. What's old money?
Old money is like generally big families that have lots of money that keep the money in the family and then have really ridiculous like marriage backs. Like they married, this person's cousin and then brought together that family's money and brought it down like the Kennedys, like an established family.
Yes.
Generation after generation after generation. They had that money, they protected it.
Right. Yes.
I haven't had a lot of people in these categories, but people I've known, people with old money, there's a culture to that separate from the new money people. And they'll even talk about it. And the old money people, I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago about this. The old money people save their money. They don't like to spend it, they like to keep it. The new money people like to spend it on, as you said, sweet cars and you know, for flashy things, conspicuous things that can show off their wealth. Whereas the old money people kind of hold it close to their chest and don't display it quite as much.
And some of where we might see this stereotypically playing out, and right, there's not a clear definition of this. Where we might see this stereotypically playing out is the lottery. I got the tickets, I won, and you answer this for me. Am I going to work? Am I going to work tomorrow? I mean, I might, because I care about all of you, so don't want money, right? But I have an option now. What do you think I'm going to buy? If I'm new money, what am I buying? Or how am I using that money? Because you don't know, maybe I won't buy anything. But what do you think I'm going to do? I might. Not that, you know, my shirt is nice now, but maybe I want it nicer. Right?
Yeah,
What do you say?
yeah, that's.
I might do that. That might be wise to do.
Vacation.
Vacation, yeah, for a week or 52. Yeah.
It makes me think of the movie Titanic, Molly Brown.
Yes.
She was like dirt poor, and then she got all the money and tried to intermingle with the old money, and they hated her.
Right.
I mean, they still saw her as white trash.
Right. With some money, well, right? What about this? Oh, let me ask you this because I'm just curious. Does anybody know anyone with old money? I would just think they linger around hanging with us. Like I'm telling you right now, I'm going to go buy some little boneless barbecue chicken wings in Walmart on my way up here. I don't think I saw anyone with old money in there. I'm pretty sure. Maybe not, but I don't think I did. What do you think about the middle class section? No thoughts? We're good? Which is fine. No pressure. Yes?
I mean, the upper middle is kind of people that are, you know, first generation, have a professional career, you know, outside your general career, like psychology, psychiatry, something like that. And then the middle class would be, you know, your average white collar, they wear white shirts, business suits, you know, things like that. And working class is probably how they look for their maintenance and decent paying jobs, but they're not really professionals, they just don't their 9-to-5 role.
What do you think about the lower class? What do you see with that?
Are you asking me?
Throw it back. Factory workers, military.
And I was particularly intrigued at the phrase that came attached to lower class, disadvantaged. And I'm like, what does that mean? Right? So let's talk about that for a second. Because immediately I was offended, like disadvantaged.
or healthy food to eat, even decent transportation to get to the job that they might want to go to, or reliable transportation. You mentioned earlier, you're going to get started on the car, kind of a thing. A lot of times because they're living in poorer housing, their educational opportunities are less. If their educational opportunities are less, then their language and their ability to mix and mingle with even the middle class, it is hindered in certain ways. So there are a number of different disadvantages that will come from being on that lower level.
Back here, I saw it.
I'll stretch it.
Stretch it? I'll be picking money for you. You don't stretch in here. Yes.
Most of that is like frustrating to see, just because certain people may not have the money that we say we need. We don't need money. We don't need the roof that we have over our heads. We don't need the heat necessarily. You can get to a certain point, of course, we're going to right back there when you die. But like, everything that we have right now is a privilege. Because go over to another country, they're just as happy.
Right.
And they don't have half what we have.
Yeah, I think the thing that struck me was the negative connotation to disadvantage. Because the thing is, like we were talking about in the beginning, there's a value assigned to all of this. Embedded, right?
I mean, to be disadvantaged implies that there is somebody who's disadvantaged. So it creates a system of separation in classes and stuff to use certain terminology such as disadvantage.
That power thing comes immediately back into play. So pretty much anyone who's not lower is advantaged. So that means I'm you know. But one could assume then that, you know, everyone has power over lower. Everyone. If power is a continuum. Right? And this is where the conversation immediately starts getting uncomfortable. Because I don't know about you, but if I'm sitting in the audience, one thing I've been thinking about is, that's interesting because here's where I fall. As I'm thinking, and what is that supposed to mean? And then how do I feel about that as I'm seeing this, particularly on this kind of chart? Lumped on the bottom, moves up on the top, that kind of thing. What does that mean? So let's tease this out a little bit more because, you know, part of this too, how could we truly have a conversation like this and push you if we don't start thinking about where we fall in this chart?
I'm just going to say, too, I think it's starting at some level, because as she was saying, we all have a sense, a lot of us have a sense of what we really have, and we are advantaged and we're threatened because we know we can lose it.
Yes.
At any time, and we can become lower, at any time. All
Right.
it takes is an illness, and lots of medical bills, and we're way down the bottom.
Right, and it's done. And then how often do people look up? Guess what? We're going to talk about that too. Okay, so when they talk about the criteria to gauge social class, right? These are the 4 things that they look at. Education, income, occupation, and wealth. So when you were talking about what are these things that are making someone disadvantaged, it's probably falling on whatever's the lowest rung of these things. Who's making the least amount of money? Who has the lowest amount of education? Who has the occupation least desired? Or with the lowest wage? Who has the least amount of wealth? And remember, wealth included valuable objects as well, right? So who has nothing of nothing? And then who has the most of the most? Regarding what they're using to gauge social class. So then even, and I'm not asking you, don't have to be like, well, I think I'm falling right about here, right? But then we can start thinking about this, like, well, what does that mean? And then how do these things mix up together? As an example, I'm a 3rd generation college graduate, but I grew up in the projects. My mother's father was a doctor. So where would that put me? I couldn't be in a TRIO program. What do you do with someone like me? What does that mean for my social class? Now, this is the thing too that's interesting. So then if you're thinking, so how would I really be able to pick this out outside of this if I wasn't a social scientist? So then I'm thinking, how would they? How would they? Then I found this, which I thought was very interesting. So if you're eyeballing this is what they say. You can probably tell, these are the indicators. It's probably going to look something like this. So I want you to eyeball this and tell me what you think. More than that, tell me if you've ever used these as indicators. Right? Oh, and I probably should have done this in the beginning. It's a little commercial break. Hi, I'm Kim Brazwell. And I'll be guiding us through a conversation today about classism and social status. And my hope today is that we can have an honest dialogue with each other, that we can create a safe space to really go somewhere with this conversation, to know that we won't use any of the topics brought up in a negative way outside of these doors. Okay, so now that we have created a safe space, right? How many of you have either used these as you're eyeballing other people, or before you walked out the door, you said, let me make a tweak to some of these so they don't put me in a little category? Anyone? Right? Talk to me about it. What's a little tweak you might make to project something? And this isn't saying you are or are not this, but what's a little tweak you might make?
I was working the other day, I go basically door to door and get people to pay their bills. And my supervisor told me not to do it, is because I look like a geisha.
A what?
He told me I look like a geisha very.
Wow.
So I took it off, fixed my hair, made myself look normal.
Right.
Really good.
And like, what's normal, right?
Yeah.
Regarding classism, what is that, right?
That like insulted me, he said that, I started thinking, like, oh my gosh, I walk around this whole time, I'm thinking about it.
Right. And where you got it, right? What about talking? Does anyone adjust how you talk?
Well, the way I was, I have an accent, and I'm Hispanic, I feel like that. And I try to play that.
Did everyone hear her?
No.
I will share for you, unless you like these, but she's like, okay. She was saying that, being Hispanic, she actually has an accent, but sometimes she tries to kind of decrease the accent to blend in a little bit, right? Yeah. Yes.
I think a lot of times in general, I think especially for minorities, you try to be opposite of what the stereotypes say that you are. So, as a black male, instead of wearing baggy jeans and long, big t-shirts or do-rag on my head, I wear a tie, dress pants, and dress shirts.
Right, because if you don't, you're just going to be scared. And you're going to probably steal something. You got to watch that. All the way back.
I actually called myself a chameleon a few days ago because I feel like I adjust to whatever situation I'm in. I am from Old Money. It's sort of, I don't get to see it until I'm much older, apparently. But my grandparents still went through a real fancy country club and it's super, super duper fancy. And so I have to be that, the model grandchild and make sure my tattoos don't show and that kind of stuff when I'm with them. But then working here with college students, sometimes I don't want to say dumb it down, especially to any college students that I work with, but to try to assimilate to that conversation or to just be believable, I guess. But so then I'm like, well, wait a minute, who am I then when I'm by myself?
Right.
So.
That's a good question.
When I was 12, my mom divorced and remarried, and I grew up on a dairy farm in the middle of the Kentucky, like I went to school with mom students. And then when I was 12, all of a sudden I was dancing, and my first day I showed up in blue cut jeans and some pink cowgirl boots and this little white curly shirt, and I couldn't understand half of what anybody said. And they couldn't understand half of what I said, and it was just like one of those things where you're subversing into something and you better like quick or else you know all that.
Right. You didn't have on whatever your uniform was, right? For your environment.
Basically to appear in a higher class, all I can do is mow my yard where I live. That was a little bit.
Yeah. And don't cross the action.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. That's right. That's happening.
Also, I grew up in New York and lived here about this to New York, and when I came there, everything was so much different. And people thought about the world so differently. I was probably one of the
And that's typically not what folks want to do, particularly in like middle school, high school.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to bring any attention to anything happening up in here, right? And then suddenly cops are like, be an individual. It's very confusing. Oh, wait, is this the thing that I said? Oh, no. I think, where is it? There is this awesome site. I'm trying to see if we have time for me to show it to you. But as I'm looking at my timeline, I think I do. Okay. I was excited. I'm like, what is she doing? Okay. So, well, this was our #2 Latino show, right? Like, hey, Hispanics on TV. Woo. 105. So, we kind of did this a little bit, but as these two mixed, and I started the conversation, but as we're teasing this out a little bit, I want to go back to what some of your thoughts are. And now, not even thinking about the ones you had, but what are some things you learned about class when you introduce this other stuff? Because right now, we've just been talking about the rich people, poor people, low people, you know, the upper class, lower, middle, sideways class, right? But what happens when you introduce these other things into the equation? What do you know about what poverty or wealth or middle class life looks like in these diverse categories? Or what did you see? I don't want to ask you what you know. I want to ask you what you have seen on TV. Have you ever seen an upper class person who was disabled on TV? Who? Oh. We got one. Can you think of any other lead disabled characters that you have seen on TV?
I love the show, they had a show, he's on the lecture circuit now, he's Down syndrome. It was, right, it was on, yeah.
Oh, right.
That was the
Two. And big nice too, right? Like, two, because he wasn't the lead, right?
Yeah, he was,
Are you talking about our middle classes?
Yeah, at this point, and thinking about just characters who had disabilities. I like to think about upper class because I think if we think, oh, there's a person who's disabled on TV, I'm pitching that our expectation would be that we probably expect them to be the victim of something. Usually we see that, oh, they were the victim, oh, this poor kid, this is what happened. But do we ever see them in a power position? Right, and they kind of mainstreamed it. We got 3. And to put that in perspective, these are just the TV shows that y'all have. You don't know how many TV shows are on TV. Collectively, we thought 3 disabled people. We're not victims. Right? Yes.
It's not a TV show, but the movie about the Nobel Prize winner that was a professor that.
Yeah. A Beautiful Mind.
That's what I thought it was, but I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll, just something to think about. Religion. Do we know of any TV shows where the highlight was a family who was not Christian?
There's a show, but it comes on in England. It's called Skins. They made an American version of it, but that's not a good version. But it's like 6 kids, and each episode they're like a lead. They're the lead in the episode, and they talk about their family and what they go through. And there's a Muslim guy in there, and they talk about his culture and his religion.
Can you think of anyone else? That gives us 1, and it's not in the States. where do you see other religions on TV? Not the news. Do we? Hmm? Right. Law and order. Yes, we do. What happened? What's this race?
Or just for housewives when they're doing something that they need to go confess.
Right. Or, I'm watching Dexter, and right now, the topic is voodoo. Right? And of course, they're killing people. But somebody is actually some people's religion. And it does not involve killing people.
Nobody is always, asking so much people.
Right.
Yes, in the Spanish element, there's another thing about Catholicism,
Mhm.
and every single one of the shows, if you go even try to even expand your idea, people are shouting on the show that goes on there.
Right. It's like whatever's the mainstream. Yep, Catholicism, if it's a Latin channel, if there is religion, they're going to be Catholic. And there's actually a trend of some Catholics converting to Islam. You probably never heard that on TV. I'm feeling to keep us on time. Well, I'm actually doing pretty good. So, does anyone know the song? No, I don't know what to do with you right now. I just feel like taking the time out and just trying to figure out what's going on in the room that nobody else is. Yeah. Yeah. Who are the people in your neighborhood? A couple people are in the office. Right? No, even Elmo picked this up, no? When they're saying, yeah, a couple people really much. Just keep it moving, Kim. I don't know what you're talking about. So now, we're talking about TV, right? That's all here. Let's bring this down to a local perspective. What are you seeing here in Mansfield when class and culture? And crime makes it sound like it's bad and people are fighting. And we're going to take somebody down with some ether in the parking lot. We're not saying that. I'm saying when it makes it. What are you saying?
Not being from Mansfield, I see people who at one point in time were maybe in that middle working class because of places like GM are not in that class anymore because GM is no longer in town. So people who were in that class now have now moved to maybe that lower class.
Let's start here. What kind of diversity exists in Mansfield? Let's not even go to class right now. Let's just talk about what kind of diversity exists.
I mean, it's anything you think about growing up here. I've grown up on the parade. That's my street. And for anybody that knows anything about me, so it's not exactly the very same of it. But you have 4th Street, and then you have the grade above 4th Street going towards Park Avenue, and then you have the grade below 4th Street going towards the park. And just between that one street, there's a whole different class out there and there's out there. So you know what I'm saying? And it's ridiculous. And then if you go 2 streets down to where the Goose is, which is the Stripe, it's even worse. It's just like, you can be on this street and be considered kind of upper middle class, and then be on that street and be considered living in projects together.
What different groups of people do you see regarding religion? What are the different religions that you see here in Mansfield? So, not the stats like, well, actually, 36% of Mansfield. Like, what do you see?
I think there's actually a large Muslim community in Mansfield. And I think a large part of that is mostly Black culture too.
What else do you see? What about sexual orientation? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. Do you see? Yes? Visible?
Yes.
Comfortable?
Maybe the younger generation.
But not right.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So
of diversity than here. We tend to be much more racist or ist of some sort. I've had homosexual students talk about how they were treated rather poorly when they were in high school. I spent an African-American student writing a paper talking about how he was the only one on his basketball team and how he basically was moved off the team and not given any playing time at all because of the color of his skin when everybody else there was white. So there seems to be a little bit more of that here, more noticeable than in other larger communities where that would be accepted more.
Okay.
The thing that I've noticed myself, I don't know if it holds true on a wide scale or anything, but around here, it's like when it comes to like some diversities, I mean, you have the extreme like racist people, yes, they're here. But then there's also the like pointed disinterest, where it's just like you just ignore it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people that just turn kind of blind eye.
Like intentional invisibility. Yes.
I lived in California 10 years. I lived in San Francisco, and I grew up in Columbus. So moving up here 5 years ago, because my husband's job, which is unusual, people don't usually go to 2 man's going for a job. So that's up to then. All I knew about Mansfield was Route 13 and McDonald's, because when I lived in the Diana, all this I stopped there, and I would get it from you. So now getting to know Mansfield, being at the college and being connected to the arts community has really made a difference, because outside of that, just shopping in Kroger's or going about your regular stuff, it just didn't seem very diverse. And so I got connected and saw how diverse it actually is, but it was hard to get to know.
Which brings up another point then too about there being a difference between there being diversity there and there being visible versus where it's inclusive and they're blended. There's a blend, right? Another thing that we're going to talk about that I want to keep us on time for is when you move. Who knows what it is?
1%.
Who's like, I have nothing, I don't know. Like after exactly was kind of speak it out on the way. No? It's okay. Take notes, look it up. The Jeffersons, you should probably see this. So you're like, why is this the slide picture, right? So this is this next part that we're going to talk about is mobility. What happens when you were, in the middle class, you move up, or you were middle class, you move down. And then what this is going to get into is the whole idea of sellout. Thinking I'm acting white, acting black. You ever heard these types of things? Those types of things. What is acting ghetto? What is all that stuff? So, The Jeffersons was a TV show about a black man who became wealthy. This is this awesome website that I wanted to share with you. This was on a special feature that the New York Times did. It's an interactive website. And there's this thing that I wanted to show you, this tab, and it shows mobility of people. So it shows a group in 1988. This is where they were, right? Then if you touch that bottom fifth, it shows what happened to them 10 years later. The interesting thing here, I think, is, as an example of this one person moved all the way to the top. Well, one unit moved all the way to the top, right? But it's interesting to see this distribution of mobility. I wanted to just show you this, and you can click on how they break down the different classes, very specifically too. The different components of class. So if you're interested in this, I can share the website with you. But it would take like a lot of time for you to just dig in here and play with this, but you could lose hours. Unless you were just going to a party or something. But this would be better. Right? You're like, no, Ken. No, it wouldn't be better. Okay, so let's talk about this. Oh, let me take a pause and check in. Where are you at right now? Where are your heads at right now? Are you just like, what's next, because I'm here till 7:30? Or are you like pondering and thinking about stuff? Or are you like, you know, I've been uncomfortable for 3 slides now? Or are you like, I've been up since 6 a.m.? Where are you at?
I hear a lot of people
Right now. Feeling early in the morning. Is anyone uncomfortable? Okay. I've had a long day too. I'm actually in the middle of a leadership training session, so I'd like to cover that, going back to that. So I understand if you've had a long day. Hang in there with me, we're almost done. And you're going to be so much more empowered afterwards. So this one I think is particularly interesting, because this is the part, again, where it starts getting uncomfortable too, where it's this split, right? What happens when you move up or down? What happens? Because we all probably have a reference group right now, right? There's some group that you belong to, and the characteristics of your group. So let's continue to get it weird and uncomfortable, shall we? So, hey, friend, what's up? What's your name? David. David, what would you say your reference group is like? The people who you hang out with are like what? What do y'all eat? What do you dress like? What do you want to do?
I don't know, I see myself kind of like a typical American teenager kind of. I don't know.
What do you eat on a regular day for lunch?
I like to eat so much.
Whatever they give you,
Yeah.
just eat it. When you hang out, where do you hang out?
I don't know whether it's a concept.
Go to somebody's house. What are y'all doing?
No.
He's like, why are you in my business?
Usually watching a movie or something, just sit and talk.
Okay.
It's like, maybe a movie like Just Dance games, everyone does.
Right, okay. So what happens then is tomorrow you discover that your entire family, particularly you, are insanely wealthy, and this swoops you into this world of wealth. What will you eat for lunch? So like, I'm not eating freaking lunch anymore. I'm wealthy, yo. I don't have to eat this pizza anymore. It's like it's over, right? You have a car?
Yeah.
He said mine, it's got tape on it, it's mine, right? Right, right. What would you be driving if you were wealthy?
I don't know, maybe a lot less than that.
Okay. Okay, would you even be driving?
Oh, yeah,
You like the freedom, the wind blowing in your hair?
yeah. Oh,
No, not him. Okay. So, if then all this happened, right, you got this wealth, you got some new freaking clothes, right, you're looking fresh, you got the car that's avoiding wind blowing in your hair, you don't really like that. It's not really your thing. You're not eating freaking pizza anymore at the cafeteria, because that's been eating out, right? So then, you've been gone for 6 months from your friends because you're kind of getting into this wealth thing. Then you come back to your friends, right? You said you hang out with Jeff's house? Who? Who's your friend that you're hanging out with?
Well, that's not exact.
Okay. Is he your friend?
Yeah.
Who are you? Who?
Cold.
Colt? So he's coming back to your house 6 months later, and he's like, hey, I'm wealthy now, Colt. But whatever, let's play Just Dance. Is it the same? Why isn't it the same? I think you know. What do you think? Whatever your reference group is, imagine now you have 20 times whatever you have right now. You've been gone for a while. You go back to your reference group. And you're like, let's just hang out. I just want to go to the mall and buy everything because I can. It's not a big deal. Whatever. What's life like?
Well, that kind of happened to me because I'm from what it used to be a suburb, but then it started, like the property that I am kind of around, so I moved to neighborhood, and then when I came back to see my friends, all they did was like make fun of me, say that I was rich and how I just like wasn't the same anymore just because of what I was.
Because you know exactly how you act. What about, I saw, yes.
I feel like part of me would want to share that new acquiring with my reference group, but also another part of me would want to procure a little safety in the future.
Right. Because suddenly you're looking at your friends like, you are irresponsible.
All my friends love it.
I can't give you any money, you're smart. I'm wealthy.
Yeah, when I moved from New York, I lived like, basically, in poor neighborhood. We were poor, we didn't really have that much money. When we moved out here, my parents got a better job. They opened up a business. And when I eventually went back to New York to visit all my friends, and they were like, oh, you can't associate with us anymore because you have a big nice house now. You have your car, you have your own garage for your car. And I'm like, I'm still the same person. But they were the ones like kind of discriminating against me. And they didn't want me to hang out with them because they were too good for me.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that too. What does that mean, too good? I'm way too good for you. Take that. Yes.
It doesn't even have to be like this large sum of money to get that feeling of you're not really a part of this group anymore. You can go to college, get an education, get married, you know, maybe get a new car, and it's like instantly, like when I go back home sometimes, I feel like sometimes I have to wear this like, yeah, it's gotta be like real for life. Don't wear anything with a label on it because then people are like, oh, you fresh, or you this, or you that, and it's like, I'm just kidding.
Right. Right. Yes.
I feel like, because I did that at one point, I went to grade go past my resignation and then all of a sudden, I had things like friends did, and it was like, but then again, on the flip side of that, when I for my friends to have money, but I didn't, and it's either like, you're the person without me, like, I can't really go to what you want to do because I want to do it and I want to take handouts. Or it's like, you feel like you're giving handouts to your friends because you want them to be able to do what you can do. And then you don't know if they're taking it the wrong way, or you just want them to be able to hang with you. And it's you know, uncomfortable either way for either situation where it shouldn't be, because some of these people might have been your friends forever, you know?
And it sounds like what's happening is we ourselves are attaching value to it, right? Because then what happens if you move down? Imagine you are where you are right now. Something tragic happens. Wherever you are, something tragic happens. Now.
Kind of a personal note, we were talking about how earlier something really tragic is like that hospital thing. Yeah, been there, done that. And we went down. $500,000 surgery kind of throws you down in the dumps just a little bit. Surprisingly enough, the most quote-unquote discrimination, if you want to use it, was by our own family. Which was, it's hard, but okay, right there. One thing, learning your own military, you don't really care about what other people think, because you move around every year, you either learn to be yourself, be comfortable and confident, or you just screw yourself.
And again, just as a reminder, if by chance, not saying you are, anyone sitting in a room feeling like, slightly uncomfortable, that is part of it. Like if that's where you are, then congratulations, you probably got something from the discussion that we're having. If you can come in and talk about classism and then leave out and be like, what else? I'm about to go buy something, you know, then you might not be actively engaged because it is uncomfortable. Slightly. Not to say if you don't feel anything and I'm like totally judging you, with my eyes. Because I'm in first. Good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when I was 19, I was dating a guy who was best friends with one of his sons when the road camera family. So we all hung out together, so I saw, and then he got married, and I saw this when they got married, their first house was on Cleveland Avenue, and they wrote people were being shot. And then they went from there to OSU, got a house, and then from there, eventually, they ended up in Cal, in a really, really nice neighborhood. But throughout the whole thing, they were really the same people, and so I think it depends on your values and your attitude. The money doesn't have to change you.
And then, and this is rhetorical, I'm just throwing this out there, there's also the argument that in some cases, should money change you? Rhetorical. Think about, which gets us into this notion right here. Selling out. What is selling out? What does that look like? Anyone who's familiar with this term? Selling out. What is that? Way in the back. Somebody in the back. What is selling out?
I mean, to me, it would mean that you give up part of your beliefs, you're willing to sacrifice a belief or a value that you have in return for something materialistic or a gain of some kind.
Mm-hmm. We're attaching something to something. I remember this summer, I was supposed to meet with one of my friends for something. And I texted my friend back and said, I am not going to be able to go because I have to take my daughter to golf lessons. I have a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old. I have to take my 4-year-old to golf lessons, right? And they were like, oh, you vote Republican now? And I was like, what happened? What just happened? I thought we wanted golf lessons. You know, what happened? And just by being black and going to take my 4-year-old to golf lessons, I had sold out. It was done. It was complete. I was kind of on my way because I live in the suburbs, but I completed my process of selling out with golf lessons. So here I am. Thank you for asking. Yes, we'll go here and she can go first. You go first.
Well, I was just going to say that idea of selling out is not necessarily that you have changed your values, but somebody else can perceive that. That Jeffersons moved from wherever it was they lived up to, I don't know, Fifth Avenue or wherever that big white apartment building they lived in. You know, when they saw their old family or friends, you know, they would think that they had sold out, when really they had the money. Why not buy a nicer place someplace?
Like, why am I going to stay? You know, with my husband.
In the black community, a lot of times selling out is being a black person in particular associates more with white people than they do with people of the black people, you know, their color or whatever. So I used to get that growing up because I grew up in kind of like right on the line of the suburb of the city. I had a lot of white friends, but I also had a lot of black friends. But when I was with my white friends, it was always called, oh, you selling out, you talking like them, you acting like them. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm being beat. But a lot of times in the black community, you hang with white people, that's considered
Right. So, and which also goes with the stigma of talking white, which we don't have that's a whole different presentation to talk about, acting white and acting black. That's a whole different thing. Here's something interesting for you, a little fun YouTube homework. Go into YouTube and put in ghetto. You will be amazed at how many video clips you find of people who are not black imitating black people and calling it active ghetto. What is that? You will be shocked.
I was offended when I first got here because like, why are you so ghetto? And I'm like, do you even know the definition of ghetto? I'm like, that was for the Jewish people back in the day when they were poor. It doesn't mean that just because they talk a different way, it just doesn't ghetto. So I'm like,
Because remember we did over the can. What I did was I just pushed the lid closed, like, this is something you should think about closing the can now, you know, but that's a whole other conversation that you definitely should tease out because there's a stereotype that goes with it. Then there's this whole notion of keeping it real, right? So then if you move up, you know, is there this expectation that there is some level of realness that does not exist in an upper class level and you have to keep it real. Are you easily offended? Because I have a clip I wanted to show you. No? Can I show you a Dave Chappelle clip?
Please.
So we don't have that much time left, but this is an example, because again, this is one of these conversations where it can get a little bit uncomfortable. So this idea of keeping it real, this is now this is where we need audio. Yeah, we don't have I apologize at the beginning for the shakiness of it.
Victorian of his high school class, won several scholarships, and became the first person in his family to attend college. He got a good job and worked 14-hour days, 6 days a week, quickly becoming the youngest vice president in the history of the Viacor Corporation, ending the cycle of violence and drug addiction that had plagued his family for generations. The officers of his company were wrapping up the usual Thursday meeting in the South Conference room when Frank Murphy, the man who had mentored Vernon, made an awkward comment.
Vernon, great job, buddy. You the man. Here's some skin, huh?
Vernon got along with all of the people he worked with, which in his remarks made him feel like an Uncle Tom. Though he could have ignored the simple comment his mentor made, Vernon decided to keep it real.
Put your hand on my face. Smack his head, baby. Shake my hand like a man. Man, he's bad. Oh, back inside. All this crazy guy. That's bull. Bull, soft shoe.
Okay, so that's just a quickie and an example from Dave Chappelle's show. And again, the reason though too why I wanted to show this, take the risk of showing this, though, you know, I thought, you know, some people are sensitive about languages. Though it was a sketch, if you know also too the whole story of Dave Chappelle and Chappelle's show, it's interesting because there was this battle, right, between mobility. How much money is too much money? And then what are you expecting of me if I move up too high regarding wealth and class and power and these types of things? And he actually in his real life struggled with it, right? And so he walked away from it. It's interesting, right? How, you know, reality meets this whole fantasy world. This art imitates life. So, moving then to, do you know who this is? Jerry Springer. Who's like, I have no clue who Jerry Springer is? Now it just makes you sensitive. expensive. I know someone's sitting there like, you're not getting me again, raising money. But if you thought that the bad girls had some good thoughts, bad girls, this is where it started. Jerry Springer, a lot of people in their 30s wasted a lot of college years watching Jerry Springer instead of going to class. Not that you would do that. I'm sure you would never do that.
Just a side note, when I visited Portland, Oregon a couple years ago, they have this one bus they call the Jerry Springer bus. It's so many characters in it. You never know what you're gonna get.
You gotta be safe though. Definitely protect yourself at all times on the Jerry Springer bus. You haven't seen the show. So I want to get some of your thoughts about some of the things we talked about today. Because again, we're just scratching the surface. But some of these things, they can be a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not asking you for this answer, but did this make some of you kind of think about or reevaluate where you would identify? You know, if you've moved up or down and what that meant, who you are, who the people around you, how they identify. This is probably one of the identities, another one that we don't have as much control over as we'd like. There might be some things we can control and other things we cannot. And there can be something completely isolated that could skew in class, up or down. Right? Some of you talked about, listen, this happened, and this was actually a fortunate thing for my family, and it created dissension with my friends, because suddenly I'm in a class that's higher. Or it could be a tragedy that happens. You lose some things, and puts you in a class that's lower. You didn't do that. But there was this mobility. And regarding this idea of value, why do you think we assign a value to this? Because by itself, it probably doesn't happen, right? It's either $5 or $500. But it's only better or worse if you need to buy something with it. Then you're going to need more or less, right? But we assign value to it at all times. So that's what kind of plays into this game too. We have like less than 2 seconds left, but I wanted to leave some space if there was anything else that anyone wanted to say or share, or if you had an aha moment, or if you thought about something differently, or maybe someone's story, it could be valuable for the person to hear that. You're like, I value that as over.
I would like to say that, like, regardless of where your actual, like, of the models we see in your actual classes, you can identify however you want. Like, you can project your class at one day, like, whether that's with your communication or how you present yourself to others. If your people aren't as visual as sort of like, what they do, it's totally, they can be good.
Another intriguing thing, and I didn't get into this, it's not really related to this, but it's in the list of resources that I'll show you. There is actually work that people have done to study language in class and saying this is how it affects how you talk. But actually study like broken down.
I struggle with kind of what he said because I think that in our minds we can identify, you know, who we are. I think regardless of who we identify ourselves with, depending on those intersections of class, whether it's gender, race, sexual orientation, or religion, we are still pigeonholed in a particular category, regardless of what we do for ourselves. The way that our society frames class and the intersections of class, we're still put into that box of what people think we are.
Yeah, we're always competing with our personal identity versus the projected identity. You know, so if I go into a room and I say I live in this place and my father's white and my mother's black and these are these other demographic issues going on with me, I'm probably going to get categorized certain ways. And it probably is inconsistent with how I see myself. And that's something that we have to always manage, right? It's challenging.
One thing interesting is that when you try to put something in the class or like you try to identify somebody, it's like the majority decides the minority. Like say you were initially
phrase I have heard is recently, thinking poor, right? Thinking poor. So you have the idea is, so you have this money, you're financially comfortable, maybe not wealthy, but you're professional level of the middle class, right? But you're still like, listen, we're going to get the cheap chips, and we're going to get the cheap gas, and we're going to get all this stuff. So I really don't want to spend that money. Technically, you have the money, but you remember when you did it. And so you're not able to spend the money that you do have because you remember what it felt like when you didn't have it. That is part of the idea about thinking poor. And in some categories, it starts affecting them with social mobility. You were here. Now you're here. But you're still behaving as if you're here. The things that you had to do to survive here, you're still doing those things, but you actually made it all.
A lot of the older generation survived the Great Depression had that way with me. I've seen a lot of that with the nursing homes and nurses.
And it happens to moving down for some people who struggle where I used to have all this money. You ever met someone that don't really have that much money but they have very expensive taste? I really love that purse. If that purse is kind of be outside of your price range because you have a military stipend that you're living off of, you can't buy a $500 purse. You can't buy a $50 purse. You bring home $800. You're not going to need these things. But they have to make the shift, right? It is. There's some other thoughts as we're wrapping up. This is your time because
don't you think like privilege ties into this in terms of like, I can speak from like a class that I taught where there were some students, white students from a local community around here that is primarily white, and it was talking about community development and privilege, white privilege and things like that, and they basically said to me, we don't have a problem with that. I think from like an education standpoint, it's for us as educators to educate our students in that these things exist. They aren't necessarily anyone's, in some cases, there's a way we're wired. It's how our brains work, right? In terms of like, when we see people, automatically our brains put them in groups, just to make sense of things. I mean, that's my understanding of it. So I think, of course, there are people on the opposite end who put people in groups to discriminate against them. But I'm thinking from like an educational standpoint, right? It's increasing the awareness that these things exist. And it's like when you were talking about indicators of social class, I mean, I try to see myself as seeing all people as equally, they're all God's creation, and so they're all important, whether they're in poverty or whether they're, president of the United States or somewhere in between. But I think it's part of educating people that sometimes you need to become more aware of how your brain and your personality and prejudice and stereotypes come in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think probably, and we just did it. We just did it, right? Because our brains are wired to. We have to put things somewhere. When we have to put it somewhere. Now, it's our job as we learn more to move it if we realize we automatically put it in the wrong place. But we do automatically place it somewhere. The case in point is, have you ever met someone and you found out they had more money than you thought or they had less money than you thought and you were surprised? Well, why were you surprised? We shouldn't have had any expectation, but we were shocked. Oh, I didn't know you were driving this car. I did not know you lived over here. This is a nice house, right? And something like, this is a nice house. Like, oh my God, how did you get this house? Right? That happens all the time. And that's where we have to check ourselves. We are past time. I went to think of the hospital. And this is my info, but if you're interested in these things, awesome references. Check these out. And thank you so much. And enjoy.
Thank you.